Good evening from Summerside, and welcome to the first of 3 PC Party Leadership Candidate Forums. We are live tonight from Credit Union Place. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Robert Larson. I'm Vice President of the PC Party, and I'll be your moderator for tonight's event. I would like to welcome the candidates that are here this evening. We have Rob Lance to my right. And Mark Ledwell here to my left. Thank you both for being here this evening. A couple of housekeeping items before we begin. For the audience's sake, there will be no intermission, so please exit and enter the room quietly. I'd ask that you limit applause and reaction to the candidates to avoid interfering with the audio for those watching at home. The PC Party is hosting 3 candidate forums during this leadership race, 1 in each county. At each debate, we will cover questions on topics like leadership, healthcare, and education. The remaining 5 topics tonight will only be covered here and are important to Islanders and the people of Prince County. The topics tonight will be fisheries and aquaculture, trade, energy and infrastructure, municipalities, and affordability. Tonight's debate will proceed as follows. The candidates will have 60 seconds to respond, and then 45 seconds each to debate. We will also have a series of lightning round questions where candidates will have 30 seconds to respond, and there will be no open candidate debate for these questions. Each candidate will give a 2-minute opening and closing statement. We flipped a coin before beginning this evening, and Mark, you will begin with the first 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Robert. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here in Summerside, and thank you to the City of Summerside for playing host. We're counting on Summerside Electric to keep the lights on tonight. Our province is approaching a breaking point, which means our party should be at a turning point. When Islanders are struggling, as many are, leadership can't drift. A leader cannot just settle in, and a leader should never accept the status quo as good enough. That's why this leadership race matters. The race presents a clear choice between extending what we've seen over the last 10 months or bringing new urgency, new energy, and a clear change in direction that meets this moment in January 2026. That's why I'm running to lead our party and to serve as the next Premier of Prince Edward Island. My name is Mark Ledwell. I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, raised in Charlottetown in a family of 5 with deep roots in St. Peters Bay and Rolla Bay. I was taught that when responsibility lands on your shoulders, you don't coast. You step forward and you act. My wife, Monica, and I have built our life here. We raised our daughters here. We have grandchildren here. This province gave our family opportunity, and leadership, to me, means renewing that promise, making it stronger, and making sure it endures for the next generation. We owe this to our children and grandchildren. We owe it to one another. I've worked as a lawyer across the province, throughout Canada, and internationally. I bring experience, judgment, and perspective, shaped by seeing what strong leadership can accomplish and what happens when clear and consistent leadership is missing, as it has been for the past 10 months. This leadership decision is a choice about our future. Do we continue down the same path, or do we set a new course with confidence and with purpose? I'm ready to serve and to lead that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob?
Thanks, Robert, and thank you everybody for being here tonight. It is lovely to be back in Summerside. I get to spend lots of time here. We've got 3 great Summerside area MLAs that make sure that I visit on a regular occasion, and the future looks bright for Summerside. You've got great representation here. And you know, I've made my first major milestone that I set for myself in this campaign. I made it to the first debate without catching this flu or cold that's getting around, so thank you for that. Folks, over the past 10 months, I've had the honor of serving Islanders as the Premier during a period of real change and challenge. I didn't take that responsibility lightly. And I don't take this moment lightly either. I choose to step forward in this leadership race for a simple reason. I believe deeply in this province, in this party, and in the responsibility we have to lead with care, stability, and common sense. This conversation we're having here tonight matters, not just for our party, but for Islanders who are watching closely and asking, where are we headed next? At a time when life feels more complicated and more uncertain, people are looking for clarity. They want leaders who focus on what matters most, who get the basics right, and who don't lose sight of what this province needs from day to day. Prince Edward Island is a very unique place. It's a wonderful place. We live in the greatest country in the world. We're proud Canadians, and we're proud Prince Edward Islanders here. This is an amazing place. We all agree on that, but Islanders are never satisfied with standing still. Nobody wakes up and says, this is perfect, let's not change a thing. No, we're always looking for ways to improve what we have and solve the challenges in front of us. That's what I admire about Islanders. It's the heart of democracy and representative government. Prince Edward Island doesn't have oil, we don't have critical minerals, we'll never have massive hydroelectric dams, but it's the people, we have communities, and we have ambition. Everything we built has come from grit and determination, folks, and we're going to continue working hard for you.
Thank you. Our first question tonight is on the topic of leadership. We will begin with Rob. Upon becoming the leader of the PC Party, you will succeed Premier Blois Thompson as Premier of PEI. The PEI-PC Party has been in government since May of 2019. At the next provincial election, the PC Party will be seeking a third term in office. The question, as PC leader, what will you do to demonstrate to Islanders that not only does the party have the experience needed to govern, but it has equally gone through a renewal phase, presents a renewed team, and has a fresh vision for our province to secure another mandate from Islanders?
Well, on the issue of experience, we have experience. We've been governing this province for 7 years, and we still enjoy broad public confidence. We have a strong 20-member caucus. We've got 2 new faces, fresh faces, bringing fresh perspectives and new energy. And on the issue of renewal, leadership contests themselves are a process of renewal. We're going through that now. It's an opportunity for us to connect with PC members across the island, engage with audiences across the island, sign up new members. This is a bit of an unusual process. We've had a sitting premier step down. We're going through this process as a governing party, but leadership contests, in this case, the winner will become the premier. And that's, we're not in a general election. We need to keep that in mind. We're still delivering on a mandate that we were elected on. The next fixed election date is 20 months away. So a general election will come, and we'll present a full and detailed election platform at that time. But in the meantime, we'll assign new roles to our caucus. We'll shake up senior management. The party is really reinvigorated, and this is good for government, and it's good for Prince Edward Island.
Thank you, Rob. Mark?
On doing what I've been doing for the past 10 months. I've been speaking with Islanders everywhere. I've been around listening to people, and I've been hearing a lot. I've presented concrete ideas and practical solutions, and this has led to many conversations. And my friend seems to have taken note of some of those conversations. My campaign has been built on renewal and change, and we've got momentum. We're signing up new members, people who've never been member of our party before. I've been approached by at least 5 potential candidates to join our team should I become leader. That's good news. Without real renewal and serious change, a third term may be a stretch. District 2 result was a wake-up call. It was a strong Tory seat, and look what happened. We just eked it out. So we need to be careful, we need to take note, we need to listen to Islanders, and we need to make the change that they're asking us to make.
Thank you. Now it's open for debate.
Well, I would say that, as I alluded to, we've still got broad public confidence in Prince Edward Island. A win is a win. If we'd counted the polls differently, we would have been a little less nervous in District 2, but we've held that seat for generations, and we held it again. We've won 2 out of 3 of the last by-elections over the last several months. We are a party nearing the middle of a second term, but we still have a strong team. We're still ready to govern. We still have a strong mandate, and we are reinvigorating the party. And yes, there are people stepping forward and saying, I want to be involved.
The difficult part that we've all gone through is that we've had a premier leave last February. We had a new premier appointed in February. We had a premier step down in December. We had a new premier who's sitting here appointed or elected by caucus and by the party executive. There's been a period of instability here. That's on us. That's on the party. We need to clarify leadership because Islanders want clear and consistent leadership. That's what I've been hearing. It's unfortunate that we got ourselves into this situation. It's not on me. It's on someone else. But we have to resolve this question soon, and February 7th couldn't come soon enough. I think as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the people that I speak with, that's how they're feeling as well.
Thank you. The next question is not in relation to the party governing the province, and it will go first to Mark. From your perspective, what currently is the PC party doing well as a party, and what could we do better? How will you contribute to this as leader?
Our party has a strong nucleus of loyal, dedicated members. Many of you who are here tonight fall into that category. We're a good governing party. For months, I've been hearing from people that they want our party brought back to the people because people in many of the districts, not all of them, have felt ignored. For months, we've had a provincial executive with an unusually large number of members from the Premier's office, and that's created a trust issue. Party members I speak with, old and new, want this cleaned up, and that's what I will do. So how will I do this? I'll schedule more district meetings with the leader. There will be a renewal of the provincial council that's long overdue. Caucus and cabinet meetings will take place more in communities, as they should. We'll get a field organizer like the late Shane Hennessy that dominated our party for years. And we'll have a western desk of the Premier's office like we did with Gail Shea back in 1996 that was really effective, really popular, and got more engagement with our party members. There's the flag.
Thank you. Rob?
Well, the question is, what's the party doing well and what could we do better? And you know, this process is a good process. It is a process of renewal. And, you know, I'm really proud of how this party is, well, I'm proud of how inclusive this whole process has been. I know that both Mark and I have been reaching out to diverse communities. We're growing the party across a broad section of Prince Edward Island. I think that's very important. It's important to keep Islanders engaged. It's important to bring new people into the party. It's important that people can engage in the political process. And what could we do better? Well, Mark said it, and it's true. It was the first, one of the first things that I launched this week, a video that I committed to do some work on the party, some of the things that we've been lacking at. And volunteers are the core of the party. They work hard, but yes, sometimes they feel ignored. So we're going to reconnect, we're going to listen, we're going to empower our members. So regular council meetings, a field organizer. Jason Lee was a superstar field organizer. We'll have annual regional forums across each county. But we definitely need to connect better with our young people who are the future of the party.
Thank you. Open for additional comment.
Well, I should say, I too am proud of the engagement that we're involved in now. You know, one of the best things that's taking place as we speak, and it's happening every day, is that we're all talking more with one another. We're talking with people in communities. I've sat in kitchens and in barns and in garages and by skate sharpeners and in oyster boats. It's just been amazing, and it's a time for us to renew. It's a time for us to engage, and we'll come out the better for it.
Thank you.
Well, there's a real opportunity for our party. I think that the data suggests, the polls show that we are gaining ground with younger voters. We are gaining ground with younger voters and with female voters. And we need to make sure that we're doing our part to reach out and make them feel welcome in this party. We had a great event the other night, the Tories Under 40. We had a great cross-section of young students who are still studying, some who graduated, trying to begin a career, and other young professionals who want to be engaged with this party. So we have an obligation to keep them involved. And look, there's so much we could do. This is a reinvigorating process, and you should all be proud of yourselves for being here tonight to participate in it.
Thank you. Switching now to healthcare, and we will begin with Rob. Since 2019, the PC government has made significant investments to strengthen healthcare across PEI. Those efforts have focused on expanding team-based care, modernizing infrastructure, and continuing to grow the healthcare workforce. From new medical homes to the recruitment of physicians, the expansion of Pharmacy Plus, a new medical school for island students, these are all important progresses that have been made. The question I have for you both is, what needs to happen next to ensure that more islanders are seeing and feeling the benefits of these healthcare investments?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Well, I'd just like to point out, you talked about investments we're making in healthcare. I'll point out that, as we're here in Prince County, that we've built new community health centers in Summerside and Alberton, both. We're investing in a new CT scanner at the Western Hospital. We announced that in our 2025 budget, a very important diagnostic tool that's an important recruitment tool for physicians who want to work in emergency there. But healthcare delivery, despite its challenges, is excellent across the system for the most case. We hear that a lot from Islanders, but the big challenge is with primary care. And we are rolling out our patient medical home model across the province. All the pieces are in place. We need to put the puzzle together. The next step in that patient medical home model is to optimize it. We're calling it Patient Medical Home 2.0. And when we rolled out the patient medical homes, there wasn't really a clear template and training expectations. But the solution is the new patient medical home at the UPEI Faculty of Medicine is the new model. We've designed it from the ground up with the right resources, the right technology, the right policies and processes, and it's the ideal model that will roll out across the province, and it's working extremely well.
Thank you. Mark?
We're spending money in healthcare, but we need to do better, a lot better for Islanders. And here's some sobering facts, and you may not want to hear them, but here they are. We have the poorest access to primary care in the country. We've got the longest ER wait times, and we've got the highest percentage of people who leave the ER without seeing somebody because they've been waiting there for too long. We must find ways to do better with the resources that we have because our resources are not unlimited. Now, I've got 3 points to make on this. First, we must restore trust between island physicians and Health PEI. I've spoken to many physicians. They feel that that would help us. We tried the stick approach with physicians. It didn't work. But we still need to find a way to make our physicians, our doctors, more productive. That's important. Second, we need to reverse escalating administrative costs and focus more on frontline services. That's where we should be spending the money. And third, we hire lots of people. We hear the statistics, but we should understand why people are leaving. When I ran business, I would do exit interviews to find out why are people leaving. We need to know that.
Thank you, Mark. Open for additional comments.
Well, I think primary access is the real challenge here right now. And last year, we had record affiliations, and we'll continue to accelerate affiliations, patients to physicians. So recruitment is very strong. I've stood in this room and had conversations with the people of the city of Summerside about the problems of recruitment, but we have resolved many of those issues. We've got a lot of momentum. We hired close to 100 physicians last year, or in the last 24 months, and we'll continue to roll out the physician service agreement. It is a landmark agreement. Some of you have probably heard about the Philpott model that she's trying to roll out in Ontario. We are light years ahead of many jurisdictions in this country. We're leading the transformation of primary care delivery with our collaborative care model, and we're perfecting that model. We'll accelerate it. We're going to speed things up, and people of Prince Edward Island will see the results.
Thank you.
Look, with respect, we're not light years ahead. Jane Philpott she's the expert. I call her the Tommy Douglas of our time. And she's now assisting Ontario with their model. They have targets. She's behind it. I agree that the patient home model is the key to our future, but we've got to be a lot faster. We're behind the curve. I don't know what we've been doing for the last year. We've been spending money, but there's not much movement on patient medical homes. There's a new one at UPEI, but beyond that, I don't see them. I think we've got between 18 and 20, depending on how you count. The plan always was for 30. We've got to get them staffed, and we have to get people onto patient homes. We'll talk about that again here in a moment.
Well, yes, thank you, Mark. So, in fact, would you accelerate the expansion of patient medical homes on PEI? And if so, how will you do this?
Well, that's a great question. Yes, and what I would do is appoint a respected island physician to chair a primary care action team with a mandate to connect every islander to a patient care home within 18 months. That person will report to the Minister of Health and to the Premier. PEI should have the best rate of access to regular health care providers in the country, and we don't. Our province will build a health care system or a health system where the guarantee of access to a primary care home is like a child who has guaranteed access to a school depending on where they live. It works the same way, and Dr. Philpott has mapped that out extensively in what she's written. The goal is that 100% of all islanders are attached to a family doctor or a nurse at a patient care home where they receive ongoing comprehensive care, not in Summerside, not in Charlottetown, but in their community. And that's important. That's why this is so important, to get these patient homes going out in communities.
Thank you, Mark. Rob?
Yeah, will we accelerate the expansion of patient medical homes? Yes, and we're in a position to do that now that we've developed the optimal model for operating these patient medical homes. So we'll roll that model out across the existing homes. But what we can also do to strengthen them, there's multiple community health services operating in silos all over this province. You've got public health services, community open health, mental health access clinics, you've got home care, discharge planning, system flow, all kinds of professionals currently all managed separately in providing primary care or preventative care, all to the same patients. So these programs, they're all staffed with well-trained professionals. We've got RNs, social workers, OTs, PTs. These can be consolidated around our patient medical homes to improve care. We get all these services managed consistently out of one hub. And it's all about efficiency and productivity. We can organize these resources around the patients instead of forcing the patients to navigate the system. So this would reduce duplication, it would reduce management, and break down those silos in the system.
Thank you. Now this is open for additional comments.
I don't know what my friend means by one hub. What I do know is that for these medical homes to be successful, and I've spoken to the experts on this, both in PEI and elsewhere, they've got to be integrated, they've got to work like a team, they can't be silos, and they have to have a good manager. And each one of them has to have a good manager. You're not going to get success running these things from Charlottetown. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. Or somebody sitting behind a desk somewhere who nobody knows and nobody can see. This is on-the-ground stuff. And if we want this to work, we have to get people in these homes. We have to get someone managing these homes. And they got to be connected to the community.
Thank you. Rob?
There's no question. And what we've learned from Patient Medical Home Model 2.0 at UPEI is that most of the patients that come through the door don't need to see the doctor. Only about 20% of the patients that have actually come through the door need to see the doctor. And we've learned that only because we've optimized the model here, that patients get triaged when they come through the door and they see the appropriate allied health professional in the, and now, I alluded earlier to that many of our doctors who are working in patient medical homes didn't have the complete training, the template to operate under. They haven't been optimized. There's a lot of progress to be made. We can accelerate the affiliations to these as we roll out this new model. And
Thank you.
I'm getting the red flag, yeah.
So at year end, over 33,000 Islanders remained on the patient registry, despite Health PEI reporting connecting 8,500 Islanders to primary care in 2025. So Rob, what more will your government do to connect Islanders with a primary care provider?
Recruit more doctors, family physicians, and affiliate them to patient medical homes. It's that simple. We are accelerating our recruitment. We're doing better than we've done in years recruiting doctors, and we're rolling out the patient medical home model that's efficient, cost-effective, and accessible for Islanders when and where they need it. They'll see the provider that they need, where they need it, when they need it. It's that simple.
Thank you. Mark?
It's not that simple. It's a revolving door. We're recruiting doctors, and then doctors are leaving. That's not progress. That's spinning your wheels. Look, my government will open more patient medical homes more quickly and staff them better than they're being staffed today. It bothers me, and I know it bothers Islanders, when we see big spending on consulting contracts, on large corporate packages, on corporate structures. We've got this, what people feel like is a healthcare elephant in our midst, and it's got to stop, and I'll stop it. We need to get more patient medical homes out into the communities where they belong. We should include the private sector in things like real estate and in planning. We don't want our healthcare system or service providers involved in bricks and mortar. So those are some of the things that I would do. But getting more doctors, we can only get so many more doctors. There's a big cost to it. They're not in great supply. So having a patient medical home where people are attached to the home is the way to go.
Thank you. Now open for debate.
Well, I would say that, I think that Health PEI does do exit interviews when doctors leave Prince Edward Island, but it's more and more rare that doctors are leaving for any other reason than retiring. We've got an aging workforce in our healthcare sector here, and that is a challenge to replace doctors that have worked for many years and often have patient loads much higher than some doctors carry these days. So. The recent physician services agreement, we've agreed on the patient panels. We've agreed on many things, and we're moving forward with that model, and it's well regarded across the country as a physician services agreement, and it will provide us with a great recruiting tool. Keep in mind that we'll have in a few years, have 20 graduating physicians year after year from the medical school at UPEI.
Thanks, Rob. This next question will be on the topic of education, and we will begin with Mark.
Just a moment. Did I miss a
Yes,
rebuttal?
my apologies, Mark.
Yeah, I thought.
Your chance for your rebuttal, please.
Yeah, I wondered what was going on there. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Look, I'm glad you raised the UPI Medical School for this reason. We've got 20 students there now. None of them are committed to stay here. Why? In Nova Scotia, they have a new medical school. It has 30 students. Guess what? They're required to make a commitment to Nova Scotia. It's a missed opportunity. I don't know the answer why, but most people, me included, think it's common sense that we would have done that. We didn't, and that is a missed opportunity.
Thank you, Mark. We will now move on to education, and we'll begin with you. Confidence in the island's public education system was tested in 2025. Recent events have highlighted possible disconnect between the Department of Education, tasked with school curriculum, and the Public Schools Branch, tasked with school operations. Mark, do you have confidence that the Public Schools Branch is equipped to uphold safeguards for island students and school staff?
No, I don't, and I don't think Islanders do either. Look, what happened in the Craswell affair demonstrated a major breakdown in the basic requirement that we all share to keep our schools and our children safe. That didn't happen. We don't need a public inquiry to understand that the system failed us. And that responsibility rests with those who are charged to take action and to take appropriate action. Someone dropped the ball. We just don't know who. But the problem is that the system failed. Regardless of where someone works in the department, in the school board, people need to be held accountable. It's really that simple. In the Craswell affair, we saw people duck accountability, run for cover, find consulting advisors to help them, and parents lost confidence in the system. Parents I speak to were shaken by this. So we need to make change. We need to look at our governance model. We need clear, consistent leadership in our education system.
Thank you, Mark. Rob, same question to you.
Well, we've experienced some incidents that have definitely shaken our confidence in the public schools branch. But I have tremendous faith in educators and their commitment to students and their well-being in the system. But it only takes one bad actor, and we had a couple of disturbing incidents. The safeguards may have broken down, or maybe they were inadequate. And I immediately called for a third-party review. Chief Justice David Jenkins has undertaken that review. I would expect that we will see it shortly. And I'm committed to implementing any of the recommendations in that report. We need to determine, was it bad policy? Was it a lack of policy? Was it a lack of adherence to policy? There's a lot of questions to be asked here. There's a lot of questions to be asked about how we structure the administration of our school boards. And I'm sure that we'll have, I will implement all the recommendations from the report, and it does require significant change to make sure these things do not happen again.
Thank you. Mark, further comments?
I didn't need to engage, and I know David Jenkins. I've known him for years, and he's a strong thinker and a capable person. But I spoke to some people inside the system, and here's what they said. They said there's a lack of clarity, there's a lack of responsibility, and there's a lack of accountability between the PSB, the department, and other departments like health and justice. And they go on to say, and this is a bunch of people speaking who are working in the system, this leaves students, families, and staff feeling confused, unsafe, and supported. These things are time sensitive. We have to get at them. It's kicking it down the road for somebody to do a report with no deadline that I can find, that doesn't work.
Well, we didn't wait to act. I acted immediately, in fact, and we've implemented new protections. We've got more thorough and frequent background checks. We've got extensive vetting of international teachers. We implemented training programs for staff in the schools through the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, Commit to Kids program, which helps educators recognize the signs of things like grooming and problematic behavior. These are all things that we acted on quickly, but there's no doubt that the confidence in the public schools branch was shaken, that we're going to get a thorough a thorough review of exactly what happened, and we'll act on that as soon as we receive it.
Thank you. This next question is for you, Rob. As students' needs grow, what investments do you intend to make in the island's public education system that will achieve the most meaningful results for both students and staff?
Well, as you know, we've had very significant capital plans for the last couple of years, and amongst that capital budget is new schools. And you know, we've had very significant population growth in Prince Edward Island. It's put a lot of pressure on our schools, and we're investing in more physical space by building these schools, and that will alleviate a lot of problems, make the learning environment much more conducive to learning. Second, we've been adding hundreds of new educational positions across the system over the last couple of years, 189 new positions just this past school year. And third, class composition is a real serious problem, and I've spoken with a lot of educators recently, and I think there's a consensus. There's been a lot of discussion about this for quite some time. I think there's a consensus that strict inclusive education may not be working well for all students. We need to develop more pathways for kids to learn to their full potential in a place that'll work for them.
Thank you. Mark, same question to you.
Thank you. The first goal of our education system must be to educate. I've spoken with some parents here in Summerside who expressed some concern about how their students are doing in school, especially around math. So we need to pay attention. I've heard and I've read that we need to get more technology enhancements into our school. The biggest threat to a lot of us now is artificial intelligence, or AI, and as far as I can tell, we do not have an AI strategy in our province and in our school system. That is something to be concerned about, and it's something we have to get on top of. Yes, we need good infrastructure, and I'm proud of our government for making these investments in schools and communities. But we also need to invest in people so that our staff, our frontline workers, are there to provide the services they're being asked to perform. The other thing I would pay attention to, and I think we need to be careful about, is making sure that our schools don't become a Band-Aid for some of the other issues that we face involving children and their societal needs.
Thank you, Mark. Open for further comments, Rob.
Yeah, it's a real struggle in island schools these days. The post-pandemic period did something that changed the game. Educators are struggling to deal with behavioral problems. We've added resources across the board for behavioral issues and EAs to help with children who need extra supports. We need to come to the table. I've talked about this strict inclusive education model where it may not be serving everyone in the system well. So I'm going to get back to our Department of Education to find out what options are available to us to provide new pathways for students that have special needs that are not being met in traditional
Rob.
classrooms.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to say here, it came up in Kincora the other day, and they were saying about how the school is essential to the community and the community is essential to the school. We have a situation down in Georgetown where we had declining enrollment, and a previous Liberal Premier said, let's close it. And did he get an earful? And the candidate in District 2, Mr. Mitchell, he got an earful. So schools are at the heart of our communities. We've got to protect them. We have to nurture them, because if we lose them, the community starts to fall apart. So let's keep that in mind when we're planning schools and we're planning communities and we're planning medical homes. They all work together. We got to consider rinks and things like that, but these are the kinds of things we should be thinking about in planning the PEI of the future.
Thank you, Mark. In 2022, elected school boards were reinstated on PEI. There have been 2 election cycles for these largely volunteer community-based roles that hold significant governance authority. In October, voter turnout was 1%, and the French language school board, all trustees were acclaimed there. So Mark, is an education authority governed by an elected school board serving the needs of Islanders?
No, it's not, and the recent turnout is an indication that it's not working. I spoke with people with the elections team that put this election together, the one we just had, and they told me that they almost had to advertise to try and get candidates and to try and get voters out, and I think they had 750 voters. So that sends a message that that system is not working. My own view, to have clear, consistent leadership, to avoid the kinds of things we just saw, potentially, not necessarily, with the Craswell affair, is we need to have a single entity. We don't need to have separate boards. We don't need an English board. We don't need a French board. It creates confusion. It costs money. It's cumbersome. It's bureaucratic. And I think people are fed up with it. We have really strong home and school associations. They're plugged into the schools. That's where parent and community participation really takes place. And that's something that we should get behind. So we've got to be more efficient, more accountable, and more fiscally responsible to serve our students.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a problem, and because these are very important governance positions, and when interest is low and the turnout's low, well, that doesn't mean that good people aren't coming forward and serving, but the trustees represent the students and the school family, and they need to be visible. They need to be engaged. They need to be working in the best interest of the education system. So it's only been a few years since the elected school trustees was reinstated. I think it's time that we go back to the department and ask them to review what's working, what's not, and make sure that we have an effective school board governance. And I am open to new models of school governance for sure.
Thank you. Mark, any further comments?
Sure. Can I say this? Let's not do another study. Let's just get at it. Let's just get it done. I mean, we're a small province. We can sort these things out. And it's not fair to the teachers. It's not fair to the people working in the school system to have this confusion. What do they feel like when they see 1% of people showing up to vote in school board elections? Let's get the message. Let's act on the message. Let's move on.
Thank you. Rob?
I think that's fair. I think that we saw in a few cases over the years where it didn't feel like the board, the trustees, understood their governance role. I'll point to the student memorial issue in Kensington, where there was a lack of leadership from the board level, and it had to escalate to the elected officials to actually get something done. And that's not acceptable. We need engaged people running our school boards, and I think we've seen a lack of leadership, that's for sure.
Thank you. Moving on now, and for this question, you will each have 90 seconds to respond. And we're going to begin with you, Rob. MSX and Dermo have devastated the island's oyster industry. In November, the provincial government announced financial support and wage subsidies for retraining to other jobs for wild oyster fishers. In December, the provincial government announced short-term relief to help oyster growers and processors manage immediate impacts from the oyster disease, with applications due on January the 5th. Wild oyster fishers were not eligible for this support. In addition, Egmont Liberal MP Bobby Morrissey says that the federal government will not roll out support until the oyster industry adapts. The oyster industry contributes approximately $54 million annually to the island's economy and has been described by some in the industry as on the verge of collapse. So as Premier, what measures will you extend or introduce to ensure that short-term stability for oyster growers, processors, and wild oyster fishers? And what steps will your government take to help rebuild the oyster industry long-term?
Well, we have the best oysters in the world, and they're worth fighting for. And we're going to listen to our fishers, and we're going to work with them, and we're going to get through this together. The provincial government has already come to the table with $6 million in a risk management program to reduce the risk to processors and growers. And there's been support for fishers for upskilling and retraining, but it's not a perfect fix. But I know there are folks coming forward to take advantage of that. We already contributed $3 million for research. But the federal government was supposed to match that money. I'm not sure why Bobby Morris is saying that, what the delay is, them getting to the table, but we're going to hold them to their promise. And we're going to work with the best researchers in the world and rely on technology and innovation. I mean, this has been a devastating disease. MSX and Dermo has been devastating wherever it's occurred. And my feeling is we need to bring a Manhattan project of research and technology and innovation to this. And there is expertise in the region. There is a lab in New Brunswick that works in genomics. They've been funded by the federal government to work on disease-resistant species. But we need to make sure that our Malpec oysters are the end product of any new oyster species that we introduce in here in Prince Edward Island. So this is it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of science. It's going to take a lot of expertise, and it's going to take both the federal and the provincial governments working together with the oyster fishers.
Thank you. Mark?
The Manhattan Project, I think, was for a nuclear bomb, so be careful. Look, this starts with direct conversations, and I've met several times with our wild oyster fishers, with our oyster growers, and with our processors. Our oyster industry, it's a high-value industry, and as Rob says, it has a reputation. It has a global reputation. So like Rob, I will be there to protect it. We have to move faster, and when we get through this, we have to have a better industry than we have today. People in the industry, we have hundreds of people in the industry. I sat with them before Christmas. There were tears in their eyes. They have families at home. They don't know how they're going to pay their bills. They have loans. It's a crisis, and it's existential in nature. So people are sitting there saying, what are we going to do? How can we go forward? We need, as leaders, to put ourselves in their shoes. You have to feel what they're going through. This isn't a textbook exercise. You got to be out there and see them in their homes, see them where they work, meet with them, and get a feel for what's going on. As for Mr. Morrissey, and I know he has some friends here this evening watching, I was appalled that he would start to talk about compensation and tie it to somebody restructuring in the industry. What kind of a statement is that coming from a federal MP? Do you think an MP in Ontario would dare say that if the Ontario auto industry was on the table? Not a chance. So he needs to be called out for those kinds of things, and it's a premier's job to do that because we can't be pushed around on something like this.
We've
got to work together.
Rob, further comments?
Yeah, I don't think we should be playing politics with this. We need everybody at the table. It's going to take all hands on deck, and we need to take the lead of the industry. I'm not an oyster professional. I'm not an oyster biologist. I'm not an oyster fisher. But we can be there at the table to provide the supports that are needed. And yes, I've talked to processors, I've talked to the association, and they are concerned. They are worried. Their livelihood is on the line. And it's not a time to be playing politics, saying, you go first. No, let's all get around the table and figure out the best way that we can save this industry. This is a cultural industry in Prince Edward Island. It's part of our identity. We can't let this go without a fight, and we'll be there to make it happen.
Thank you. Mark?
I do like oysters, but what I would say is this, is when I met with the people who are affected by this, I said, here's the thing. When we had a bad Fiona, we found the money to deal with it. They found the money. When we had the potato wart situation, they found the money. It was through a diversion program. If you push hard enough, if you come prepared, pounding the table, you'll get the money because there's lots of money out there. We just got to pull it in for us, for our people, for our industry. So that's one thing. The second thing is there is a research facility here in PEI, and it's a good thing, in Surrey, that's looking at disease-resistant seed now. They've got money support from the federal government. So we're doing it here in PEI, and that's a good thing.
Thank you, Mark. So the next question goes to Mark, and it is, what supports would you introduce to ensure that fishing and aquaculture are economically sustainable and environmentally sustainable for future generations?
Well, the first thing I'd do, the Minister of Fisheries and Tourism is here, and I'd make his day easier. I'd get rid of tourism, and he's sitting back there, and he would become the Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture only. The industry is that important. It's full of that many issues. There's a lot of stuff happening in Ottawa. We need a standalone Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture, period. That's step number one. The feedback I'm getting is that we need stronger conservation and protection measures. That's coming from the PEI Fishermen's Association. And they're asking for, and this is both on the aquaculture side and on the fishery side, the type of supports we see in the agricultural industry for things like insurance and advance payments and stability and innovation. They feel, and I agree with them, that the way we've supported the agricultural industry is the way we should support the fishing industry and the aquaculture industry. The final thing I would say, and this is true in all the food that we produce in PEI, we need better science. And we can't rely on Ottawa science, we need PEI science.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks very much. We're very fortunate that we live in a province that has significant aquaculture and fishing industry that also has a very strong bioscience and biotechnology industry that's very focused on animal health. So there are many ways that we can ensure the sustainability, the health of our aquaculture and fishing sectors in Prince Edward Island. I want to go back to the oyster issue again for a minute. In terms of how do we save this industry and make sure that it's environmentally sustainable and that it will continue for generations? I've had conversations that they're very simple things that governments can support with probably a very small investment. Things like just habitat management in our oyster beds, oyster bed restoration, very simple things that they've brought to government, or to me just recently, on this campaign, and said, these are the simple things that we know will make a difference. What we really need to do is build the volume. We know that we're going to have a certain margin of loss in our oyster industry. We need to build the volume so that we can sustain those losses and still continue the industry.
Thank you. Mark, further comments?
Yeah, look, these are high-value products. Shellfish, we all know that. It's like the gold and silver of PEI, and we don't have gold and silver mines, but these are high-value products. We need to think of them that way. We need to protect these industries. We need to get emotional about it. We need to get excited about it. The fishers we have in this province are world-class, and I've met with a lot of them. I speak with them. They're proud of what they do, and as a province, we just got to get behind them a bit more. When stuff comes along like MSX and Dermo, we got to jump on it. We need to own it. It's not somebody's issue in Ottawa. It's not for Bobby Morrissey to comment on or to fix. It's us. It's ours. And as a premier, that's what you got to do. You got to own it, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you. Rob? Yeah, do you have any further comments?
Yeah, I think that, the core of this is that we're all working together, we're all pulling in the same direction, and that we're applying all the resources that we have at every level of government and within the industry to make this a priority and to save this industry.
Thank you. We're going to switch now to trade, which is also very relevant to our primary industries. Canada remains in a trade war with the United States. While CUSMA allows for 85% of exports tariff-free, there remains uncertainty as all parties enter the review phase this year. Trade diversification has never been more important to the stability of our economy. Rob, as Premier, what concrete steps will you take to further diversify the island's trade relationships outside of the United States?
Well, I was proud that I introduced, we were only the second province in the country to introduce legislation to reduce interprovincial trade barriers, and that's work that's ongoing. It's not at the surface. It doesn't seem to be in the media as much as it was, but that is work that's ongoing. We announced as part of our tariff response plan the Export Enhancement and Diversification Fund, and that allows island businesses access to market research, advertising, trade shows, including travel costs, and it allows them to develop market strategies. I've led trade missions along with some of our island businesses abroad to find new markets and new customers for island products. And every month, our industry leaders are fanning out across the world to create new relationships and to find new customers. And we're enabling them to do that with the support of government. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to support them. The big question is what comes next with the looming review of the CUSMA agreement with the United States. And that obviously is a big wild card. The next premier will be around the table with the other premiers and the federal government, and
Thank you, Rob.
I look forward to being there.
Thank you. Mark?
We've had a free trade agreement in Canada since 1988, and it's important to remember that it was brought in by a Tory Prime Minister, Mulroney. It would be a mistake to assume that the CUSMA exemptions that still exist will be here this time next year. We heard from Mr. Trump just 2 days ago that CUSMA is irrelevant and he doesn't want to buy Canadian cars. Who knows what that man is going to do next? I don't. But we can't sit back. We cannot be, we're nimble. We have to get on our toes, and we need to be aggressive in pursuing a diversified plan for PEI. Canada has 15 free trade agreements with 51 countries. We have 9 provinces that we can trade with. We need to work, as Rob has said, with industry leaders. They're the key. We've got some natural trade relationships. We have potatoes in Puerto Rico. We're known in Japan, in part because of Anne Green Gables and our bluefin tuna fish. But we can build on those relationships. We have a presence there. We know those markets. They know us. That's something to build on.
Thank you. Rob, any further comments?
Well, we are on our toes. The business community in this province is working hard. We've tripled the number of trade missions this year. So we are nimble. This province, we've been fortunate that we've escaped the worst of this trade dispute because most of our exports are primarily exempt as a result of CUSMA. But that is the wild card, and that could upend the entire game. There is a lot of risk here. And I can tell you that there's producers here in Prince Edward Island that don't want to find new markets. In fact, they've got long-standing relations with the United States, with customers there, and you know, they're happy with those customers. They think they can salvage those relationships, but I'm telling you, it's a risk. But
Thank you, Rob. Mark, any further comments?
One thing I've learned is that those folks don't control the border. That's a big deal. And anytime you're trading across a border, you've got geopolitical risk, and we're living through it in the worst way that we've ever seen right now. If you said to me 10 years ago that we'd be dealing with what we're dealing with now, most people would say, no way. On interprovincial trade, Rob, I saw what you did. You had a bill, you got it in, you followed the Nova Scotia bill, you got royal assent on it, but for some reason, it's not proclaimed. I checked it today, it's not proclaimed. It's not law. I don't know why. We go to all this trouble, we enact these laws, and then they sit there collecting dust. That's not the way to go.
Thank you. Continuing now with trade. Trade in the United States accounts for about 80% of international exports from PEI and a quarter of our annual GDP. In your view, Mark, is the government, both federal and provincial, taking the right steps to limit the risk to our economy? What more would you do as Premier to limit that risk?
No, I don't think we are. I think we're exposed. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to be realistic, and I'm trying to be careful. Our industries are finding it increasingly difficult to trade in the U.S. Leaving the tariffs aside, there's more uncertainty. They're having more problems with the border. Little things like paperwork, those things are all starting to slow things down. The markets aren't as robust as they were this time last year or even the year before. Everybody talks about the one economy, removing these internal trade barriers so we can get more activity going between our provinces in Canada. It's more talk, I think, than substance, because all of a sudden we see all these carve-outs. Lawyers, engineers, alcohol, I forget what some of the other things are, but it's happening all the time. So we need to get serious about internal trade, and I appreciate that Rob has made moves in that area. We just need to amp it up a bit. There are other opportunities, and as they say, don't let a good crisis go to waste, and we are in a crisis. And when I'm looking at, here we go, I lost it, the flag. Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Rob?
well, the challenge is that there's so much risk. It's almost unlimited, and it is all the result of an erratic Donald Trump. And it's difficult for us to predict exactly how to respond, and we're seeing that on a day-to-day basis. But on the interprovincial trade, I was very clear on the floor of the legislature that the bill would not be enacted until the regulations were developed. We've got working groups with other provinces. We've dug deep into this. It's a very difficult challenge, but that work is ongoing, and it will be completed, and it will result in freer trade between our provinces. But on an ongoing basis, I've established relationships with our federal counterparts, our provincial counterparts, and I'm looking forward to working with them on this issue. But other things like establishing regional air service is very, very important to our economic development within this province. We'll see that air service back up here in the spring. But there's all kinds of things that we can be doing. We need to work together to mitigate this risk, but it's going to be difficult. It's almost.
Thank you. Mark, further comments?
Yeah, one of our biggest, newest potential opportunities is to trade with the federal government. Federal government has unleashed the biggest spending program in the history of Canada in defense spending. It's going to hit between $50 and $60 billion a year. That money is going to get spent. It's going to get spent primarily in Canada. And if it isn't, it should be. We want some of it spent here in PEI. It can be spent up in Slemon Park, where we've got world-class aerospace companies. It can be spent down in Georgetown or in Kings County, where we have a world-class propulsion company in the naval sector. We need to get in sync with what's going on there. We need to participate in NATO. We need to use these bright, innovative people we have right here in PEI. That's going to be our next trading partner.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, I think there's going to be an opportunity to talk about economic development and some of those opportunities around aerospace and in other sectors. But now that we're here in Summerside, I think, you know, the more time I spend in Summerside, the more I realize how much untapped potential there is here. There are some world-class companies operating here in Slemon Park that are on the verge of expanding very significantly. One of the problems is, one of the bottlenecks is, one of the risks is access to energy, which will be our next topic here, coincidentally. But there's so much opportunity to continue to grow this province. We've been on a roll. We've led the nation in GDP growth in 2024. We've had a strong year, but there are a lot of risks. There are a lot of headwinds, and we need to be careful that we're keeping a strong economy here at home.
Thank you, Rob, and great segue into the next topic. We're going to talk now about energy and infrastructure. And so you're both aware you'll have 90 seconds on this first question. PEI's demand for power has been growing exponentially since 2012. Despite this, MLAs learned at Standing Committee last week that little has been done by Maritime Electric over time to prepare. Plans submitted to begin to address the issue remain held up with IRAC. Further to that, Islanders could see a 10% rate increase in 2026 if all the utilities' requests with IRAC are approved. Now, the utility has warned of possible rotating blackouts over the next 3 winters until additional power resources come online in 2028. What is your strategy to solve for the current immediate need for power on PEI? Rob, we'll begin with you.
So our overall goal in Prince Edward Island, obviously, is reliable electricity at affordable, competitive prices. But we are, as we've just heard, in a capacity crunch here. So we have to move immediately to install on-island backup generation. There's no question. I mean, that's just part of planning an energy system. Our energy usage here has climbed rapidly as we've electrified. The same is happening in other provinces on whose electricity we depend, like New Brunswick. So when we're reaching that peak demand, we need power that's dispatchable immediately. And these combustible turbine engines are that. They're used here in Summerside. So we need to move as quickly as possible. Maritime Electric needs to move quickly. IRAC needs to move through the process as quickly as possible. Over the longer term, well, in the immediate term, actually, at the same time, I've advanced the new undersea cables as part of our nation-building project in cooperation with our regional partners. We need to deregulate our energy market to permit new generation and distribution models. There is no question about that. We need to move forward with our regulations here. We need to reimagine a new energy future so that we can continue to grow our economy, secure our economic future. We need a more integrated regional system. We need energy cooperation across the region. All of these things have to happen
Rob.
immediately.
Mark, same question to you.
I have a problem with the premise of the question. You say that last week or 2 weeks ago, a legislative standing committee learned about rolling blackouts. We've known about these potential for rolling blackouts now for 3 years. People have been standing around, not dealing with the question. This is serious stuff. After healthcare, when I walk around, that's what I hear. Blackouts, electricity. What's happened? Who's looking after us? I had a lady call me last week, and her power was out up in the Alberton area, and she said, "Mark, are the rolling blackouts starting?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." They said they would give us notice. You don't deregulate or talk about deregulating your energy system and then say to Maritime Electric, go spend $500 million and install these refurbished turbines that come from the United States, by the way. They're not even Canadian. They're not even European. They're coming from the US. That really doesn't make sense to me. We need to move more quickly. Rolling blackouts are unacceptable. For a province like ours, it's an absolute disgrace that we're in this situation. And I'm not here to point fingers. Why bother? We need to find solutions. Government needs to play a leadership role here. It's not a Maritime Electric problem. It's not a PEI Energy Corp problem. It's not an IRAC problem. It's our problem. It's the people's problem. And the people are represented by government, by their MLAs, and by their premier. So we need to not leave this unattended any longer, and we can't rely on corporate interests to solve our problem.
Thank you, Mark. Further comments on energy, Rob?
Well, we're operating with a regulatory environment that's best suited for the 80s or 90s. Energy innovation is at the forefront of innovation globally, and we're being left behind. We need to, and that's why we need to change our regulatory model here to allow new models of generation and distribution. And we've got the know-how here in Prince Edward Island. We've got a nascent clean tech industry. Mark talked about a group in Eastern PEI who's at the forefront of microgrid technology and alternative fuels. The know-how is there. We need to solve the immediate problem. Nobody wants the lights to go out. And I don't think many people in this room care how that gets solved. And so that application before IRAC right now needs to be expedited.
Thanks, Rob. Mark, do you have further comments?
I do.
Direct
I
energy?
think people really care how it's resolved. And the way it's going to be resolved right now, it's going to result in a 10% increase in your rates forever, plus other increases that are pending. We're going to be looking at 20-25% rate increases and then some. So this is serious stuff. I speak with the same kind of, with people in PEI, beyond PEI. There are solutions. But for some reason, this government, this Minister of Energy is stuck on this proposal. And I'm not even sure what he thinks, because when he was asked in the summer, what's your position, he says, government is not against the Maritime Electric proposal. Does that mean he's for it, or is he being backed into it? Are we being backed into a corner here? It doesn't feel right, it's not right, and we need to stop this and find another way. Why would you go ahead? I know
Thank you,
Cabinet
Mark.
is meeting on it now. Why would you go ahead?
Thank you. Next question is for you, Mark. What steps will you take to address future energy needs with Maritime Electric and IRAC as electrification and the energy transition continue here on PEI?
Well, I think we need a new PEI energy strategy, and we tabled an energy strategy last summer. It was kind of confusing to me because it said PEI Energy, and then there was a Montreal consulting firm on the cover of the energy strategy, and I said to myself, who's prepared this energy strategy? It's a company based in Quebec. They have an office in Montreal, and I said to myself, did they prepare the energy strategy, or is this our energy strategy? So we have to have a real, serious, made in PEI energy strategy. Then we need to take an active role, a more active role in regional energy planning so that we benefit from these new developments. The province of Nova Scotia is now doubling down on gas. They're going to hunt for gas. They're going to try and exploit gas. They're pursuing gas. We need to be involved in those discussions. There's this new Eastern Partnership, which is a big deal. They're looking for $75 billion from the federal government. We need to get more involved in that.
Thank you. Rob?
I think that, again, standing here in the city of Summerside, a city that's been extremely fortunate to own its own electric utility is a good opportunity to discuss this. And I've discussed it with city officials, and I think at this point, it's time that the utility here in the city of Summerside be allowed to play a bigger role in generation and distribution. They've been penned into this sandbox here, allowed to play in the city of Summerside, but there's so much more that they contribute to our energy system here in Prince Edward Island. They want access to these new cables coming from the mainland. It seems fair to me. They could probably play a bigger role in the entire western end of Prince Edward Island in Prince County. So I think that bears looking into, and how the Summerside utility fits into the larger energy infrastructure here. I've had discussions with Susan Holt and Tim Houston about the possibility. Mark mentioned regional cooperation.
Thank you, Mark, or Rob, thank you. We will now go to Mark for any further comments.
Yeah, at Summerside Electric, they've been asking for direct access to power from the cables now for 4 or 5 years, and they haven't got, it's not coming. So they're frustrated. They feel, as you say, penned in. And the reason they're not getting it is because Maritime Electric is running the show. That's really what's going on. Somebody needs to break that monopoly. Somebody needs to break it down. And by building this new plant on the waterfront in Charlottetown for $400 or $500 million, you're just putting a tighter monopoly around the necks of islanders. That's not the way to go. That just doesn't make sense. We can't allow that to happen. So we've got some serious decisions to make here. We've got to find a way to keep our rates down. People are worried about electricity. They're worried about the cost of electricity. We can look at some other options like biomass, natural gas.
Further thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, we need to talk about a regional independent system operator for the entire maritime region, perhaps the entire Atlantic region. We need to plan as a region. So, there's been an infrastructure investment deficit all across North America. You see utilities, and at the same time that there's an energy capacity explosion, or energy load explosion. So what you're seeing is people scrambling to install new infrastructure to keep up with demand. And of course, that's driving costs up all over North America. But there's ways that we can, Mark talks about breaking that monopoly. I'm going to bring forward a Microgrid Freedom Act to Prince Edward Island and allow community organizations, business parks, allow you to generate your own electricity and distribute it among yourselves.
Islanders have observed a decrease in the reliability of cellular service on PEI, especially in the summer months. Dropped calls and rural dead zones are becoming more common. To solve the issue, joint partnership between the province, the federal government, and telecommunications providers is required. Rob, as Premier, how will you bring partners together to achieve faster progress on improved cellular service for Islanders, and what roles can the provincial government play in this partnership?
Well, it's sad that this is what it's come to, that these giant telecom corporations are trying to download some of the costs onto the province and the taxpayers of Prince Edward Island. We already pay some of the highest mobile rates in the world, and so Islanders are rightly frustrated that we're not getting this service. And telecoms are federally regulated, but the province, we're not powerless, I guess, but we've already invested $2.5 million in telecommunications infrastructure, and we're speaking with the providers. We have a plan to put micro towers on public infrastructure. We're inviting the telecoms to come to the table to get them to put their infrastructure on these towers at low cost. We've done the hard work of examining where the opportunities are to cover the areas that aren't getting good service. So it's a matter of working with the telecoms, but it's awfully frustrating, I can tell you that, because
Thank you, Rob.
They should be paying for it themselves.
Mark?
Look, one of the words I keep hearing over and over again is plan, plan, plan. Rob, you've been in the chair for 10 months, and the time for planning ended a long time ago. This is a time for action. I started talking about this issue in the summer, and I was surprised because it touched a nerve with people. It's a public safety issue. It's not just a convenience issue. There's people who can't get 911 calls answered. There's people stuck in the middle of a field with a tractor that's broken. There's all kinds of issues here that we've got to address, but we have to act, and we need some precision. These large telcos have been pushing us around. It kind of reminds you of Maritime Electric. Somebody needs to push back. Somebody needs to say to them, if you're going to do business in this province and you're federally regulated, this is how you're going to do it. And if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to provide service to Islanders, we'll find somebody else. And trust me, we can find somebody else. There's all kinds of people who would like to put a telco system in PEI that's going to work from tip to tip. Let's go get it done.
Further comments, Rob?
Well, the problem is it's, this is big corporations, and all they're concerned about is their bottom line, and they just don't see the population base here to make a return on their investments. So we need to push Ottawa and the CRTC to modernize the rules, to require them to providers give better access. It is true. It is a public safety issue. It's an economic development issue. This is something that we need to get on immediately. We've got an RFP going out to invite carriers to put infrastructure on our towers, on public infrastructure. We hope to see those results as soon as possible.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, just 2 points. We're a big corporation too. We're a $3.5 billion entity, so we can throw our muscle around too. That's one point. And the second point is that there are federal laws here in play. There's provincial laws here in play that we can use. We really need to push back, and we need to find a solution to this quickly.
Thank you. We have one question for you related to municipalities. Almost 2/3 of PEI is unincorporated. PEI has 63 municipalities for just over 100,000 people. Many Islanders live directly outside incorporated areas and access municipal services without paying any municipal tax. Mark, is it time to revisit municipal restructuring? And how would you address the sustainability of PEI municipalities long-term?
It is time. It's long overdue. One of the things I've learned in traveling around the province is just the pride and the almost like the secrets that are in some of these communities. Because if you don't go there, you don't know this stuff. And it's fascinating to me. It's really at the heartbeat of PEI. So that's one of the benefits of doing what I've been doing for the last 10 months is seeing these things in action. We do need local governance that must be in the hands of local communities and leaders. These groups are staffed by volunteers. These are people who give of their time in good faith and goodwill. The last thing they need is a bunch of people in Charlottetown saying, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that. It drives them nuts. So if we're going to keep these municipal governments relevant and vibrant and exciting, then we need to make it a little bit easier. So we do have to change the rules. I've had stories about, well, they force the CIO, Chief Administrative Officer on you, and that kind of thing. It's not working.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, I hope you're not talking about forcing small communities to amalgamate across the province, because I know that there's very, very little appetite for that. It's been tried, and it doesn't go down well with people who have pride in their communities. And I know the challenges of municipalities. I've served on Charlottetown City Council for 8 years, and there are often financial constraints. And the department is reviewing the municipal government as we speak. So, and the next census is due in 2026. These are two and very, very important points that need to align. So we've signed a 2-year financial services agreement with municipalities, and they're all getting more money this year than last, but we do need long-term solutions. And that probably looks like regional shared services for things like planning and development, fire, a common CAO serving multiple communities. There's just too much pride in communities, and I can tell you they're not willing to come together as one at this time.
Thank you, Rob. Mark, further comments on this?
Yeah, just to be clear, I mean, I would never support forcing amalgamation on any municipality. That's just not on. And we've seen, what that happened under the McLaughlin government. There's a lot of pushback, as there should be. I'd call that a failed policy, a failed experiment, and we're trying to move beyond that. So that's point number one. Point number two is these do involve financial considerations. We need to keep supporting our municipalities. And we have good fire departments in municipalities across the province. Those are shining examples of a model of how to do things. And let's keep it going. Let's get behind them, but let's get this law changed. And let's not let it collect any more dust. We've got to get at it.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, well, and part of your question talked about, outlying communities accessing services in larger communities. And there does, some would argue there's an issue of unfairness there. And, I think we need to find an approach that treats the island as one island community. It's not fair for taxpayers in some municipalities to be footing the bill more so than others that are using the facilities just as much. So I'm putting together something in the capital region, the capital area municipalities council, something similar to like the council of the federation where the premiers meet regularly. I think that it's an idea that will force the capital area municipalities to work on infrastructure planning. We often get municipalities looking for the same things in municipalities that are just kilometers apart.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our last topic of the evening, which is affordability, and this question will go first to you, Rob. Since 2019, the PC government has taken many steps to reduce the tax burden on PEI, including increasing the basic personal income to $14,650, up from $9,160 at the time of forming government. They've frozen the property tax rates and island waste management fees during high inflationary periods. Yet, islanders still face some of the highest marginal tax rates in Canada. As Premier, will you commit to adjusting income tax brackets for inflation annually? And what other tax measures will your government introduce to ease the tax burden on PEI?
Well, you're right, Robert. We have taken many steps. And we've done a lot on the affordability issue across the years here. Since 2019, we've increased the basic personal exemption amount by 60%. As you said, $14,650 in 2025, and we're going to $15,000 even this year. And that lowers your taxable income. We've modernized the tax system with more brackets, with higher thresholds, lower rates. This all means you pay less. And these tax cuts have saved islanders $20 million alone last year. But more broadly, affordability measures, you mentioned some, school food programs and seniors food programs. We're spending $8 million this year. $10 a day daycare will save the average family $4,000 in savings this year. Home heating oil subsidies, they went from like $100,000 a few years ago. We'll spend $8 million subsidizing low-income islanders' oil heating bills this year. We're subsidizing your electricity bills at a cost of $13 million this year. Look at your electricity bill. You'll see a 10% discount paid by the government of Prince Edward Island.
Thank you, Rob. Mark, same question to you.
It's a 10% rebate. It's not a discount on the first block. The second block, there is no rebate, but I guess they're going to get rid of that anyway, which is a hardship for farmers. Look, we've got a cost of living problem here. Everyone is feeling it. I see it and hear about it every day. So I've been trying to put together a plan in consultation with people, and here are some of the things that I've suggested. First, a government led by me will index personal income tax brackets and credits for inflation. We need to get more money back in the pockets of islanders, less money coming into government. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I've looked at eliminating the tax on fuel. Why would you pay a tax on a tax? It costs you 3 cents a liter every time you put gas in your car or your truck. I would look at a graduated sales tax on used vehicles, not what Mr. McFarland had proposed, but something more graduated like they have in Saskatchewan or in British Columbia. I would eliminate the annual fees that we pay to register vehicles.
Thank you, Mark. Rob, further comments on tax brackets and affordability?
Well, yeah, we've done a lot, and we're going to do more. And it's all about what we can afford at any given time. And we'll take targeted measures. Many of our measures have been targeted at low-income islanders. And you have to be careful about promises you make about what you can deliver. I mean, we can't just legislate ourselves out of federal tax laws here in Prince Edward Island. So, you know, that's why you see rebates. We can't just remove the HST, the provincial portion of the HST from your electrical bill. We have to go through a process of rebating it back to you to avoid conflict with the federal government. So, but we'll continue doing what we're doing constantly, consistently, giving islanders relief from rising costs as the government can afford to do so. And they'll be targeted to those who are impacted most by rising costs and inflation.
Thank you. Mark?
Two things. You're right. You do have to go, and you have to go to the tax folks in Ottawa, and you need to say, we need to do this. Why are we paying HST on toothpaste? Why are we paying HST on toilet paper? How does that make sense? So somebody's got to raise these issues, and we can't just go along to get along and say, well, that's the way it always was. You got to bear down and go after these things because they matter. They matter to island families. I'm glad you raised the cost of all these things because we do have a cost to all these things, but we also have a debt and a spending with your government that is gotten out of control. We have to rein it in because if we don't rein it in, we can't do these things. Who ends up paying for all these things? It's you and me and everyone across PEI. That's not right. It's not fair. We have an obligation to get this debt under control so we can do this stuff.
Thank you. Mark, what is the most significant affordability measure you will introduce in your first legislative sitting as Premier that will specifically target island families?
I'm going to move the HST rate in PEI back to where it was in 2016, from 15% to 14%. Why am I going to do that? Because just because Nova Scotia did it, and New Brunswick and Newfoundland are sitting there and they're not doing it. I want to send a message. I want to send a message to islanders that this is serious. We're going to all work together to make life more affordable. That will be the single biggest measure. You remember that Stephen Harper, back in 2006, 7, and 8, dropped the GST from 7% to 5%, and it stuck there. And it was probably one of the most memorable things that the man did as our Prime Minister. We've got to send a message that we're changing the direction. We're going to move the ship this way. And what it means is that everybody says, okay, they're going to cut this. What can we do? What else can we do? We have to have that kind of a conversation. That's the single biggest thing that I would do.
Thank you. Same question to you, Rob.
Well, we're going to continue providing relief to islanders in targeted ways, like I said. And you know, I'm hearing Mark's proposal to reduce the HST just after he talked about the difficult fiscal choices we'll have to make to get the deficit under control. And I'm wondering what programs he's going to cut. What programs of that list that I didn't even get through that we're providing relief to islanders to make life more affordable here? Which ones of those are you going to get rid of? So there's very difficult choices ahead. I agree we need to get the deficit under control. I'm not sure if we can afford to cut the HST at this point, but I hope at some point in the future that that's possible. But look, I'm going to look at targeted ways, particularly targeted at young people. I feel like young people are being left out in this economy. They feel like they're being left behind.
Mark, further comment?
We don't want to be a high-tax, uncompetitive jurisdiction. That's counterproductive. We want people to come to live here, who want to live here, who want to have families here. We want businesses that are going to invest here. We have to be competitive on a national scale with tax, and right now we're not. So we have to clean that up. And when it comes to spending, yeah, there's all kinds of things that I think government needs to consider. Should we be involved in this? Should we be doing that? It's not cutting programs. It's looking at where government should be spending its time and its resources. You know, so obviously we're going to be spending it on healthcare. We're going to be spending it in education. We're going to be spending it in our infrastructure. But beyond that, we have to have a serious look. I mean, we have to make choices, and we have to make choices that benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Thank you. Further comments, Rob?
Well, I just want to point to, we've done a lot and we are going to continue to do more. We have to stay competitive, absolutely, I believe that. We've got the lowest small business tax rate in the country. We just increased the threshold for small businesses from $500,000 to $600,000. We've lowered the general corporate tax rate. This government has been focused on providing tax relief to Prince Edward Islanders. And we'll continue to do that, but now we're in a position that we have to look at each and every one of those initiatives individually as to whether we can afford them while we get our spending under control.
Thank you. Candidates, we've now reached the lightning round. Just a reminder, you will have 30 seconds to respond to this question. This question is for each of you, and we will start with Rob. What are the two most important things you will do as PC leader to unite the party following this leadership race?
We'll just come together at the end of this. We always do. We come together, we get back to work, and we do what progressive conservatives always do: good government and listening to the people.
Thank you. Mark?
Not much different. I think we need to pull people in. We need to have these conversations. You know what? We need to keep on doing what we've been doing, what I've been doing, and I think what Rob is doing now for the last month. But I've been at this for 10 months. Getting around, getting out there, meeting people, going to them, not having them have to come to you, getting off screens and Zooms, and just having these conversations in person is really, really valuable.
Thank you. So this next question is only for you, Mark. On this one, though, you will have 60 seconds to respond, and then we'll go to a question that's just for Rob. So your question, Mark, is, in May, you announced your intention to seek the leadership of the party. If successful, you would become our next premier. However, without a seat in the Legislative Assembly, you would govern from outside the rails on day one. Since May, there have been 3 by-elections held on PEI, yet you did not seek the party's nomination in any of these races. In addition, you currently reside in a district with an incumbent PC MLA in their first term. So the question for you is, why did you choose not to seek an open seat in the Legislative Assembly when you wish to be our next leader and premier? And what are your intentions regarding seeking a seat in the legislature?
Well, I've been focused on seeking the leadership of our party, and it's a full-time job, and I've been working at it consistently, as I said, for the last 10 months. The party needs to accept and recognize that in some of these districts, they had their own ideas about a candidate, and the most recent example of that was in District 2, where a member of the Premier's office became the candidate for our party. So I can't do anything about that. I can't help that. What I can say is that I'm committed. When there is, if I am successful, I will either find a seat to run in, but I will be a candidate in a seat that either in a provincial election or in a by-election. It's interesting that over the last 2 years, we've had, how many? 4 by-elections, starting in District 19, and then 15, and then 9, and then 2. So there seems to be by-elections happening for whatever reason. So if one of those comes up, I'll be there.
Thank you, Mark. This question is for you, Rob, and again, you'll have 60 seconds to respond. In February, you became the interim leader of the party and premier of PEI. On the day of your swearing in, you stated publicly that you would not seek the permanent leadership of the party. Then in May, you released a statement to CBC leaving the door open to a possible run. Next, in June, you posted to social media that you would continue as interim leader until the party selects a new permanent leader. Then in November, you called on the party to get down to business regarding a leadership convention and that you would consider the leadership question when the time comes. So the question to you is, why did you choose to make these public statements when there was no pressure to do so? And why did you ultimately decide to make a reversal and seek the permanent leadership of our party?
Well, I wouldn't say there was no pressure to do so. And that pressure began almost immediately. And by the spring of or June, I guess it was, that pressure was becoming, it got to a point where I was being asked to make a decision. And then a number of very personal and practical reasons, I was not in a position to make that commitment. But that pressure didn't let up throughout the summer. And many of my colleagues, many of my constituents, many islanders across Prince Edward Island urged me to continue on. And I didn't change my mind, but the circumstances changed, and I changed with them. I became in a position to make this decision, to seek the leadership with the support of many of my colleagues. I'm honored to have that support, and that's how I arrived where I am here today.
Thank you. This is the last question of the night, and it is for each of you, and we will begin with Mark. Regardless of the outcome of the leadership race, will you represent the party in the next provincial election?
Yes.
Yes.
Same question.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, we've now reached closing statements, and Rob, I would invite you to begin with your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you, Robert. Right now, many islanders feel like they're living close to the brink. The future feels less predictable than it used to. Costs are rising. Pressures from outside our province and outside our country are affecting daily life here at home. People worry that the systems they rely on, they worry about their communities, they worry about their jobs and the economy, they worry about the healthcare system. And they want to know that they can trust the decisions being made on their behalf. What islanders are asking for is not complicated. They want stability in their lives, they want stability in their government, they want leaders who listen and respond when something isn't working, and who are accountable for the choices they make. They want progress, but not at the expense of who we are. Prince Edward Island has always done things its own way. We don't chase everything, every trend. We don't copy what works somewhere else and assume it'll work here. We take the time to get it right. That's how we built this province, and that's how we protect it. Getting back to basics means focusing on what matters most to islanders. It means respecting taxpayers, it means strengthening the services people rely on, and it means making thoughtful decisions that support growth while preserving what makes this province home. This leadership race is about more than a title. I don't want the job out of ambition. I have a sense of responsibility to finish what we've started. This race about the direction of our party and the future of our province. I believe islanders want steady leadership, clear priorities, and a government that they can trust to focus on what truly matters. That's the approach I believe in. That's the work I'm ready to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Robert. Prince Edward Island was not built by people who waited things out. It was built by people who stepped forward, took responsibility, and believed deeply that their province deserved better. Our province was built by farmers who worked the land without handouts or guarantees, by fishers who earned their livelihood against the tide, by small business owners who took risks, signed their names, hired their neighbors, and bet on this place when nothing was certain, by communities that built schools and churches and rinks and raised families because no one else was going to do it for them. The things we value, the things that we take pride in our communities, they exist because those before us chose hard work and responsibility over comfort and complacency. They didn't wait for certainty. They didn't wait for ideal conditions. They acted. They rolled up their sleeves because leadership means stepping up with conviction when others may be content to sit back and be complacent. That's the legacy of the PEI that I know. That's the legacy of the PEI that I grew up in. And it's the moment in front of us now. The moment is not later. It's not tomorrow. It's not when it might be easier. The moment is today. It's now. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a choice. We can ignore issues or sweep them over here, or we can take action. And I know that Islanders are resilient people and that we will take action. So we have hope and promise in who we are. We need to take action to reduce the cost of living, to address our energy supply, to fix our health care, to protect our land, to educate our young people, to expand our economy, and to restore accountability. I'm ready to step forward and take that responsibility. I honestly, really am. And I'd be honored to earn your support for the work that lies ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much for being here this evening for our first candidate forum. I want to thank the audience here at Credit Union Place and all those who are watching at home. Thank you everyone behind the scenes as well. This is an exciting time for our party and the future of the province. Our next PC Leadership Candidate Forum will take place on Thursday, January